The hidden truth of Eden. What really happened? Good evening, seekers of ancient truths. Dim the lights, settle in, and let the whispers of history carry us back to a time before time, to a place etched into the very foundation of human consciousness. The Garden of Eden. For generations, this foundational narrative has shaped our understanding of ourselves, our origins, and our relationship with the divine. We tell the story of a perfect paradise, a fateful choice, and a subsequent fall. But what if the story we know, the one passed down through millennia, is merely the surface? What if beneath the familiar parable lies a tapestry of deeper meanings, obscured truths, and an unfolding drama far more intricate than we have dared to imagine? Tonight, by candlelight, we promise to venture beyond the commonly accepted narrative, to peel back the layers of dogma and assumption, and to ask, what really happened in the Garden of Eden? What hidden truths, profound theological insights, and overlooked historical contexts might redefine our understanding of this pivotal moment in sacred history? Join us as we journey into the heart of Eden, not merely to retell a story, but to unravel its deepest, most resonant mysteries. The crucible of creation, historical and cultural context of Genesis. To truly understand the narrative of Eden, we must first step out of our modern sensibilities and immerse ourselves in the world from which it emerged. The book of Genesis, particularly its opening chapters, is not a scientific treatise or a chronological history as we understand it today. Instead, it is ancient Near Eastern cosmology, a foundational mythos crafted to explain existence, purpose, and humanity's place within the divine order. Composed and compiled over centuries, likely reaching its final form during or after the Babylonian exile, 6th century BCE, Genesis reflects the intellectual and spiritual landscape of its time. Surrounding cultures, such as the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Egyptians, all possess their own creation myths, tales of gods, chaos, and the ordering of the cosmos. The Genesis account, while bearing superficial similarities to these myths, such as a primeval flood or divine beings interacting with humanity, stands in stark contrast in its theological distinctiveness. Unlike the polytheistic and often capricious deities of Mesopotamia, the God of Genesis is singular, sovereign, and benevolent. The creation itself is not the result of a cosmic battle, but a deliberate, ordered act of divine will. This context is crucial. The Eden narrative, therefore, serves not only to explain origins, but also to assert a unique theological worldview, a monotheistic vision that challenged the prevailing pagan narratives and provided a distinct identity for the emerging Israelite nation. It established a covenant relationship between God and humanity, framed within the context of creation and the consequences of moral choice. Understanding this cultural milieu allows us to appreciate the radical nature of the Genesis account and its profound departure from its contemporaries. Decoding the sacred text. Beyond the literal serpent, the heart of our inquiry lies within the sacred text itself, specifically Genesis chapters 2 and 3. The familiar elements are there: the formation of Adam from the dust of the ground, the breath of life, the pristine garden, Eve fashioned from Adam's rib, the two trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and of course, the cunning serpent. But what do these elements truly signify beyond a superficial reading? Let us consider the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is not merely a tree bearing forbidden fruit. The Hebrew phrase, Etz Hadat Tov Vara, implies a much deeper concept than simply knowing the difference between right and wrong. Humanity already possessed an innate moral compass, created in the image of God. Rather, knowledge of good and evil in this context can be understood as the capacity to determine good and evil for oneself. It represents autonomy, self-governance, and the ability to define one's own moral boundaries, independent of divine decree. The prohibition was not against knowledge itself, but against seizing this ultimate prerogative, against attempting to become like God in defining reality and morality. The fruit, therefore, is a symbol, a tangible representation of this forbidden autonomy. And then there is the serpent. Is it merely a talking reptile? While later theological traditions, particularly in the New Testament, Revelation 12-9, explicitly identify the serpent with Satan, the Genesis text itself does not. In Genesis, the serpent is described as Aram, crafty or shrewd, a creature of the earth, albeit one imbued with a unique intelligence and a capacity for deception. Some scholars view the serpent not as a literal embodiment of cosmic evil, but as a symbolic representation of temptation, internal desire, or even a challenge to human free will. It is the catalyst, the externalized voice that articulates the alluring possibility of forbidden autonomy. The interaction is a dialogue, a seduction, not a direct imposition. The fall is not an act of divine punishment per se, but the natural consequence of a choice, the severance of direct, unmediated communion with God that came from attempting to usurp divine authority. The nakedness of Adam and Eve, before and after the transgression, is also profoundly symbolic. Before, they were naked and felt no shame. Genesis 25. This speaks not merely to physical nudity, but to a state of complete innocence, transparency, and vulnerability before God and each other, without self-consciousness or hidden agendas. After the eating of the fruit, their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked. Genesis 3-7, leading them to cover themselves. This signifies the birth of self-awareness, shame, guilt, and the desire to conceal the fundamental alienation that arose from their choice. They perceived themselves as separate, no longer fully integrated into the pristine unity of creation, and their relationship with God and each other was irrevocably altered. The unveiling. Hidden theological meanings. Beyond the literal events, the Eden narrative is pregnant with profound theological insights that continue to resonate through all Abrahamic faiths. At its core, it addresses the origin of suffering, sin, and death, not as arbitrary divine decrees, but as the direct outcome of human choice. God did not create evil. Humanity, in its exercise of free will, introduced discord into the perfect harmony of creation. This story establishes the concept of sin as a breaking of covenant, a rebellion against divine order, and a pursuit of self-sufficiency that ultimately leads to alienation. Furthermore, Eden speaks to the nature of human freedom. The existence of the forbidden tree and the choice presented to Adam and Eve underscore that genuine love and obedience cannot be coerced. They must be freely given. Without the option to choose otherwise, humanity would merely be automatons, not beings capable of true relationship. The fall is thus a tragic affirmation of human liberty, demonstrating its immense power for both good and ill. It also introduces the theme of divine grace and judgment. Even in the immediate aftermath of the transgression, amidst the consequences, the toil, the pain, the expulsion from Eden, there is a subtle thread of hope. God clothes Adam and Eve. Genesis 3:21, a provisional act of grace. He also utters the proto-evangelium, Genesis 3:15, a cryptic promise of future deliverance through the seed of the woman, foreshadowing the eventual triumph over evil. Thus, the story is not merely one of condemnation, but also of a redemptive plan already in motion, a testament to God's enduring love and unwavering purpose, even in the face of human brokenness. Eden, therefore, is not just about a beginning, but about the blueprint for redemption and the ongoing drama of salvation. Echoes of Eden, controversies and enduring questions. The Garden of Eden narrative, while universally recognized, has been a source of ongoing debate and diverse interpretations throughout history. One of the primary controversies revolves around its historicity. Is Eden a literal place, a geographical location on Earth, and are Adam and Eve historical figures? For centuries, this was largely accepted as literal truth. However, with the rise of modern science, geology, and evolutionary biology, a purely literal interpretation faces significant challenges. Many theologians and scholars now view the Eden story as mythological in its literary genre, but profoundly true in its theological message. It's a story about origins, not a scientific account of human evolution. Its truth lies not in factual chronology, but in its explanation of human nature, our brokenness, and our longing for restoration. Another area of discussion centers on the nature of the serpent and the origin of evil. As mentioned, while later traditions equate the serpent with Satan, the original Genesis text is more ambiguous. Some Jewish traditions emphasize the internal struggle within humanity, suggesting the serpent represents the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination inherent in human nature. Christian theology, on the other hand, often points to the rebellion of angelic beings as the prior event that set the stage for the serpent's temptation, thus placing the origin of cosmic evil outside of humanity itself. These varying perspectives highlight the enduring power and complexity of the Eden narrative. It is a story that refuses to be confined to a single, simplistic reading, continually inviting new layers of interpretation as humanity grapples with its own nature, its choices, and its eternal questions. The lingering scent of paradise. So, we return from our journey into the heart of Eden. We have moved beyond the surface story, uncovering layers of historical context, linguistic nuance, and profound theological depth. We've seen that Eden is more than a garden. It is a spiritual crucible, a narrative designed to articulate humanity's origins, its tragic departure from perfect harmony, and the enduring promise of divine redemption. The hidden truth is not a secret kept from us, but a deeper resonance waiting to be discovered beneath the familiar words. What, then, is the lasting echo of Eden for us today? It is a reminder that choices have consequences, that true freedom lies not in self-assertion, but in alignment with divine purpose, and that even in our fallen state, the yearning for paradise, for unmediated communion with the divine, remains etched into the human soul. The story of Eden is not just a tale of what was lost, but a profound narrative shaping our understanding of what can be restored. It asks each of us, how do we navigate the knowledge of good and evil in our own lives? How do we seek to return to that garden of peace and reconciliation, not through innocence, but through wisdom and intentional surrender? May the ancient whispers of Eden continue to guide your contemplation, illuminating your path in the search for truth.